Hi there. Let me welcome my guest for this episode of my podcast, Breaking Barriers, Season 4, Aradhana Sharma. Well, Aradhana is somebody who doesn't need a lot of introduction. She's a known person. She's a known face in the sports industry, and she's been associated with this industry for quite some time now. And she's giving great advice to our athletes. And how is she actually advising our athletes? Who is she? Well, she's a sports nutritionist and working a lot with all our athletes. So let's find out what she has to say about sports nutrition. Well, my episode will focus and concentrate on sports nutrition. Why is sports nutrition important? And why do India really need a sports nutritionist? Why not only the elites, but also in the grassroots level? Welcome you to Breaking Barriers, Aradhana. It's such a wonderful pleasure to have you in my show.
Thank you so much, Pratna, first of all, for having me here. I'm really happy to be here and talking on your podcast, Breaking the Barriers, because nutrition, all over sports science, I consider, that should be the backbone of, all the trainings and all. And I'm so happy that you're running a podcast which reaches to masses to talk on different subjects. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks a lot for having me here.
Really appreciate you giving me time. I know you're very busy. But first of all, let me ask you, how was Holi for you? Did you enjoy Holi vacation?
Yeah, I still enjoying. Today being Sunday, so it's extended. Holi was good, though we keep it a little low profile. But yeah, it was really good to be with family. We traveled to, be with our extended family, and also it was wonderful for us. I hope it was the same for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a blast with my family since exams were
Wonderful.
over, and we really had a blast. Thank you so much. So I
Great
would
to know that.
first like to ask you, what were your reflections for the Paris Olympics? Because you were the lead nutritionist, and Paris Olympics was obviously hitting the headlines for all the good reasons, be it Neeraj Chopra or whatever may be
Yes.
the reason. But the fact is that what have you learned, as I believe as a professional, it is very important that you grasp whatever you get to learn from the athletes, from the teams available there. And obviously, summer games are the biggest platform, isn't it, for any sporting personality? So I would really want to know, what were your reflections from the Paris Olympics?
It was just in a one sentence, if I want to say it, it was a great experience going there because this was the first time that Indian contingent had nutritionists with them. This was the first ever, So, and it was an initiative by Indian Olympic Association. So I'm thankful to them to think of having their own team of sports scientists who
Right.
can, go to the Olympics and know what can we do later on. So it was a great experience knowing, not only to support our athletes, but also to learn a lot from what other countries are doing.
Yeah.
Because you get to see the, different kind of, different countries coming with different kind of lifestyle, different eating habits and all that, and how the athletes from the other countries are actually getting their nutrition, right?
Right.
So this was really, really, for me personally, it was huge learning experience for me. So now we know that what can be done better and all that. So overall it was, that is the topmost event that one can go into in terms of when it comes to international sports competition, and I'm really happy that I got to be there and learned a lot. So the overall experience was great.
Yeah, it's definitely great to, have conversations with the fellow athletes, and apart from your own team members, apart
Yes.
from the own contingent. And it is really important to, keep your eyes and ears open and check what the other, especially the advanced countries in terms of sports, like the Australians, the Chinese, the Americans, what are they doing? So can you just give us a sense of, how different their sports nutritionist team were working for their athletes, and the basic differences, or where do you think that India lags behind as a nutritionist team, or where the team really needs to work out or build up, give us a sense of that.
So I'll start with from the Indian side of it, because what I heard, I've been working with a lot of Olympians to start with when I moved to India. So it was when they go out at a platform like this, many times, because it's a huge spread of, be it breakfast and lunch and dinner. And many of them are not used to the continental food or the, now in this case, French food and all that. So many times they get confused because that's not what we eat. That's not our staple diet. So it was like we need to get our athletes more used to having different kind of food so that they don't get stuck. Like, मेरे पसंद का खाना नहीं, मैं नहीं खा सकता,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing.
Mm.
So our
Happen?
athletes are
Did
a
it
lot
really happen?
connected. Yes, it does happen at almost every Olympic. I mean, even at the Asian Games and all. But in Asian Games, at least, they get to eat, because in India, we are fond of Chinese food and
Right.
Thai food and all that. So in Asian, they get those cuisines. But when it comes to, international, like when European food and all that,
Mm-hmm.
now, if you talk about someone like Neeraj Chopra, he's used to it because he's been training
Yes, yes, yes.
out of India
Yes.
for quite long. And yeah, so he was used to it. So he had no issues at all with the food. But a lot of athletes did have issues because they did not have their dal chawal
Hassan
and
Khan.
bhindi ka sabzi and all that. Yes. So that is something what I feel that we need to train our athletes for. Of course, I mean, I'm also very vocal about, like eating the local food and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to athletes, they do, if they want to be truly international level, at the competition, they need to be understanding that food is not something what we can every time get at there.
Mm.
So just to give you now what other countries are doing,
Mm.
there were some countries who actually, I mean, of course, it's not only the Indian athletes who had certain issues with food. There were other countries' athletes as well. But those developed nations and all that, they flew in their chefs.
Mm.
Whereas in India, I mean, it was the nutritionist only going for the first time. So forget about, chefs.
Having your own
So
chef.
it depends on so it depends on the contingent size also, how much of, support staff, how many people you're taking in support staff. So this is something, I mean, this was the first step. And yes, so the other countries, I mean, there were other nations who had their own pantries set up
Mm-hmm.
in the village, wherever they were staying in the building. They had their own pantries set up, so they would get their tea, coffee, and certain snacks and all that. So that was what was the learning, because they had been sending the nutritionists for many years,
Yeah.
so they understood
Yes.
for the next one. So what I feel is, for the next one we will be better prepared,
Mm.
because this time, see, athletes taking note, or the coaches taking notes on food and coming and writing about it is a different thing versus a nutritionist, because we know what can be put in there, what cannot be put in. Like, I cannot put a chart stall there.
Mm-hmm.
My athletes would love to eat that, but can I do that? No.
Yeah.
So that is something like we would know better going forward. If the nutritionists continue to travel to the Olympics, we would know where we stand and where we need to go from here.
So again, there are people that I also speak with a lot of elite athletes and Olympians, world champions, and people who are training, coaches who are training grassroots level at the grassroots level. I think I want to generalize it, but you may be well versed with it. But in my opinion, there are people who do not even feel that there should be a sports nutritionist, and what is the job of that particular person, sports nutritionist. I mean, एक कोच ही कर सकते हैं सब कुछ. There are people who believe that the coach is the ultimate, and he or she is there, always there to guide their kids' food, what should be eaten, what should not be eaten. Like you mentioned, earlier in my question that you will know it better what the person or the athlete needs to put in his diet and what he or she needs to kind of avoid. So there's a general perception. How do we make people understand? Because I've always believed that, in my podcast, I want people to understand what is the importance of a sports nutritionist, sports scientist, and why we really need it. How would you make people understand or convince them that these are the reasons why you need a sports nutritionist?
That's like, and I mean, you know it really well that we do struggle a lot, because many a times people think that, oh, nutritionists, we don't need, we are fine without it. They would think like what the coach, with all due respect to the coaches, of course, they would think like whatever the coach is saying, we will be eating that, or what coach used to eat in their times, we'll do that. And I mean, call it good or bad, in India, everybody knows nutrition. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So even your
Thanks to
neighbor
Google.
will tell, okay, you want to run. So it's like, even, yeah, not Google. We have our own practices, right?
Mm.
You talk to your neighbor, or, anyone, your dadi nani would also know, okay, if you eat this, you're going to run faster and you're going to get more muscles and you're going to get stronger. So that runs in our culture, everybody knows what food you need to eat. So it becomes, and we are emotionally connected with food. So it becomes really difficult at times when you tell them, no, it is not the right food for you. They would like give you, a look which is not really good. So anyways, so coming to that, first of all, the education, like when I would tell you, I started working in India in 2010, 2011. At that time, were only a couple of sports nutritionists actually working,
Hmm.
on ground. So it was like we have come a long way, a long way. So I mean, of course, we are on the right track. Our athletes and coaches now understand. Now, when it comes to convincing them, I generally tell them, see, there are only three things you need to know when you are training for a competitive sport. One is when, how much, and what to eat. Athletes know that they need to eat more in order to have more energy for their sport and all, but what they don't know is how much they need to eat before training, during training, or after training for the recovery. So that's where the sports nutritionist comes in. And of course, I tell them, see, you become what you feed, what you feed your body.
Hmm.
So it is something, it's not like you, so if you want to be elite athlete, you want to be a shiny, nice running car, a very expensive one. Now, if you don't put a good grade petrol in that and you're putting in kerosene, you
Hmm.
can't expect a good outcome. So that's how, I generally talk with my athletes and the coaches, that they need to understand that small things actually matter when it comes to your enhancing your performance.
So, again, there will be people who will be questioning why, if I take advice from a sports nutritionist, how is this going to help my son or my daughter to perform better in Olympic sports?
Yes, so I mean, I do deal with a different age group when it comes to sports nutrition and all. So, one thing is, nutrition will help you with your immunity. You're not going to fall sick because, see, I always tell exercise is a stressor. It is a stressor for your
Yes.
body. And only thing you can build your immunity to fight against any kind of, infections. So, that is the basic. So, we know that even to be healthy, we need to eat better and clean, of course. So, that is one thing. Second, to enhance the performance is like, if you don't know how many calories you're burning
Hmm.
and how many calories you're actually, what is your intake, you wouldn't be able to do justice. You won't be able to have balance. Now, calories apart, how many calories need to come from carbohydrate, how many from fat and protein, and then what amount of vitamins and minerals you need. Parents can't calculate that.
Yes.
We are equipped with calculating that. And if any imbalance goes in there, of course, what I am eating, I'm not practicing right now. I can eat and get away with it. But if I'm eating bad today, it is affecting my performance tomorrow in my tomorrow's training. So that's why it is important for parents or anybody who is into sports, for them to know that this is what actually helps, because recovery matters a lot, and nutrition is the main point, main factor when it comes to recovery. So it helps you to recover better so you can perform better the next day. If you're not recovering, there are high chances of injuries. Nutrition can actually also work for injury prevention. So if you want to be in the main circle sport, if you want to perform better, you've got to be injury free. I mean, sports training come with the risk of injury. We can't say
Yes,
that just by eating
absolutely.
good you
Yeah.
won't have, but it prepares you better. It prepares you better to enhance your performance. It keeps you healthy. It prepares you for the next training. It gives you better recovery, and also it helps you for the injury prevention.
You are talking a lot about body recovery. I have met a lot of coaches, students, elite, players during my career as a sports journalist. There are people who do not give importance to recovery. They are training nonstop, 24/7. They are training and training. And at the end of the day, they end up with a lot of injury. So recovery is also important, isn't it?
It is really important, Pratna. I'm so happy that you brought this up, because I do see that. I mean, of course, we have some wonderful athletes who know how much time and what efforts they need to put in for their recovery, and they are doing wonderfully well. But we have only few. You can count on
Yes,
fingers.
very few.
Then rest of them, yeah, very few. So, but when you have to see the masses, it's like more the merrier. They think in terms of training. So there is a term called overtraining syndrome.
Yeah.
So we are like actually pushing them into overtraining.
Mm.
Overtraining is not only like you're training for 10 hours, it has to be in a coordination with your recovery time. And recovery is not only for body, it has to, your brain has to be recovered too, because you do drain it during the training.
Yeah.
So recovery is one thing we all really need to work on, because in India, we are into, a lot of our athletes are into overtraining.
Mm.
They still feel that I'm gonna train, if I train little extra, I'm gonna
I'm
get
going
more
to have an
benefit,
edge.
which can be, yeah, which actually backfires. And we have a very high injury rate. I mean, not only in the seniors, but you see the junior, if you pick up any sport and see the
Yeah.
data, the injury rate is very, very high in our
And
juniors
that's
as
a
well.
threat.
So
That's a
yes,
threat
we
to their
are,
career.
that is.
Very early stage
You see
career.
a lot of athletes, they
Yeah.
drop out of sport because of recurrent injuries.
Yes, yes.
You can't be abusing your body by not recovering well and just training hard
Yeah.
and fast. It's not going to be, your body needs, it's not a robot. So we don't want to treat our athletes like a medal producing machine. We want to treat them as human, and we need to think about their well-being. The injury is part, like your recovery is part, should be part of the training program. It should not like you train. It should be put in their whole day's schedule that this is your recovery time and this is all you're doing for recovery.
You face such kind of issues with the athletes that you have been associated with, and you have had to, make them understand, like, look, stop, you need to recover now. You need to have this amount of nutrition and then start your training afresh. Have you had the experience of, telling them like that?
I have I have it all the time. So all the time. So I have to tell athletes, if you are say training for 5, 6, 7 hours and you are sleeping only 6 hours, you're not doing justice to your body. Second thing is, many times what happens, Pratna, if they are training very hard, their body all it needs is rest. Their appetite is also suppressed.
Yeah.
They wouldn't eat, they'll just right away go. So that is another wrong thing that they are doing to their body. So we have to educate them a lot, not only for eating, but even for drinking water, getting their electrolytes right, because they don't even feel thirsty. Their body just wants to, like, they just want to crash in bed, like, just, I want to sleep. So that happens a lot. I mean, I face it every now and then. It's very common. So yes, we do tell them, see, of course, we can't interfere with the training practices because
Right.
that's what is not our domain. We don't want to step on anyone else's toes. But this is something, if somebody is training for 6 hours, it's not like I can stuff them with food just to survive for those 6 hours. They have to eat on time. They need to increase certain nutrients in their diet. So, and it's not an easy job to get their habits changed. So it does take time, but I'm happy that a lot of my athletes, they do understand. Of course, it takes repeated efforts from my side, but a lot of my athletes, they start to understand, because if I can't change anything in the coaching, I better not change because it's coach's domain. But then whatever we can do at the, so I make sure that they don't go to the training ground empty stomach. They do eat some pre-workout snack, and they are taking their electrolytes or a fruit or something during their training, so that they are doing justice for their body, is not going into negative energy balance. And then after training, we work on the recovery protocols, that you need to have, at see, immediately after training this, say an hour after training this, and 2 hours after training. So that's how we have to, and most of the athletes do follow, but we still have some who are like, we'll see, I'm training hard, so I'm gonna win. But sure enough, they get injuries and then they come back to us.
Arana, you rightly mentioned educate them about the recovery process or the entire process of when to have, when not to have, what not to have. These are very basic kind of terminologies that I'm using because I want everybody who's watching this podcast to understand. And do you
Right.
believe that, we don't have that in the ecosystem, in the sporting ecosystem in this country? And it is taking a lot of time for, people in the sports industry to understand the importance of a sports nutritionist, of a sports scientist. And because these are the people who can really, really help them, these athletes to, enhance their performance. And, sometimes as a sports journalist, when I speak to my, counterparts in Australia or, all the developed countries, I have friends from across the globe. When we kind of talk, I get, a different kind of a feeling that, oh my God, where are we standing? Because we have LA 28 now. India is planning
Yeah.
for, Commonwealth Games in the days to come, just as a reiki for the future Olympics to be held in India. So India is trying hard
Right.
for to host Olympics in India. So in these circumstances, do you think it is only important for the athletes to train in India and abroad under the top scheme or the other schemes available, but to also understand these are the factors that will also need to be addressed, and these will enhance your performance. Was my question too long for you?
No, I did understand what you're trying to ask here. So, yes, it is really important that, see, I always say, I mean, I don't shy away from saying this, that we are not going to get medals with the foreign training exposure or having the best infra or even the best sports science equipment and team, unless the athlete follow that. We are
Right.
not going to. So it there has to be a discipline throughout.
Mm.
It's not like, when athlete is at the training ground at 6 a.m. and later it doesn't matter, what he eats or she eats, it doesn't. So the discipline goes round the clock. It's not like, only around your training time. And that's where we do struggle a lot, because the athletes are really sincere with their training and all. But when it comes to availing the help of other sports science, experts, it becomes like that is still at the back seat somewhere, in the car. So we do need to address this issue, that we need to work as a team. We complement each other, so a proper nutrition will help you to perform, have better energy in your next training round. A sports psychologist may can help you. It may help you to deal better with your inner self, when you
Right.
are
Yes.
into the
Yes. Your
competitions.
mental health. Yes.
Yeah, and so we have to, so I have told it on a lot of platforms, we do need to work on prehab system rather than going on rehab. Once they get injured and then we wait and then treat them, rather than why don't we build a strong system when we are working on prehab, we make sure that all the foundations are right,
Mm.
so that when my athlete is going to play out, I'm sure that he or she is injury free, he and she is well prepared. Now, sport is sport. We can't predict that who's gonna win or lose, but at least we have the confidence that our athletes is very well prepared on all aspects. It's not only training, 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 and the foreign exposures, or the best infra and all that. We do need to work on all the aspects, like a 360-degree program.
So, what changes, Aradhana, do you think there should be changes in the sporting ecosystem in the country when it comes to Olympic sports, football? Cricket, I'm not including because cricket have always been maintaining that injury-free process
Yes.
and the kind of stuff they have in NCA. They're really looking after their athletes, their cricketers, be it men or women, in a great way. But if I'm concentrating more on footballers and the Olympic sports athletes, so, what changes would you suggest? Since you have been with the team to Paris Olympics, you have been associated with the Odisha sports with Mr. Gopichand's academy. So, what changes would you like to bring in?
So I would suggest we need to start. See, I'm just for an example. If we are looking for 36 Olympics, we need to prepare our athletes. We need to have the lot of those athletes who will be performing in that Olympic. We need to. So we have a very robust long-term athlete development plan, because we do have certain plans, but long term, it's not right, because we are not yet talking about LA 2028. I
Yeah,
mean, if you see,
yeah,
we are still. I mean, for many, many months after the Paris 24, we were just stuck upon that. And now we have like just about 3 years, a bit more than that. But it's so we need to prepare for
are
that
we
now.
ready,
So we need
Aradhana?
to start.
Because we have
That's
some
what
chance.
right now we are not, I guess, because I don't see us talking a lot about LA 2028. And
Absolutely. Yes.
so I mean, now there are certain good things that, I mean, other day I was reading that the ministry has come up with I mean, they have asked the federations to at least have 2 years, plan in hand that were for their competitions.
Right.
So it's not one person's job.
Mm.
It is the ecosystem that needs to change. If we have competitions and when we know our international athletes will be participating, we need to give them enough gap to recover and then to compete in the other ones. So the trials and the deciding eligibility criteria and the qualifiers have to be done well in advance. So we have long time to prepare for the next Olympic. So this only can go with long-term planning, for not only for athlete development, but also for the whole ecosystem to be together and to work on the long-term goals.
Deal with the female athletes and any incident of a female athlete, or do you have an example of a female athlete, of an elite athlete who really follows sports nutrition and follows your advice and is kind of really disciplined?
Yeah, I've had a lot of elite athletes who were, but with female athletes, I mean, first thing I want to say, it's little challenging getting through them, because there are a lot of things. Again, as I said, we Indians are anyways emotionally connected with food, and when it comes to female, we are even more emotional. Like I tell all my female athletes, even if the coach is today mad at them, they'll take it out on the food. And I'll tell it's not food's fault that the coach was scolding, your coach was mad at you. So I mean, there are a lot of female, I mean, you see PV Sindhu, she knows what she needs to do. She knows that, you see her food choices and all that, she will give up what she's not supposed to eat during her tournaments and all, There are certain female athletes. There are many more. I mean, I have worked with water sports, so I've worked with some athletes who were the winner in Asian Games and all that, right? But then it comes, only challenge that I see is they, when they come to us, they're already 16, 17, 18.
Mm.
That time changing the habits, because they are so attached to certain food and they just don't like certain food,
Right.
so it becomes little difficult. So when it comes to female athletes, yes, I've had some really, really good female athletes who would follow it. But again, coming to that, there were a lot many who would not want to stick to two, three reasons. One is they use their emotions a lot when it comes to food. Second thing is they are more image conscious. No, I want to look certain way, especially when I'm working with teenage athletes. I want to look certain way. If I eat this, I'm gonna get fat, and if I'm they don't want to drink enough water because it makes them gain weight. And I'm like, water weight doesn't stay in your body. So just, don't worry about it. So yes. And then another thing is we have very little research on female athletes. I mean, not only in India, it's overall. In general, till now, what I had seen in India also, female athletes were eating equally what the male athletes are eating. Of course, the portion size would be a little less, but when it comes to the nutrients,
Right.
around what time they need to have what, it is important because they have the menstrual cycles that we need to take care of. I mean, not take care, but support that nutritionally, right? So if my female athlete is not taking adequate fat in the diet, their hormonal system gets affected. If they're not getting adequate protein in the diet, their hormone system will get affected, and their periods and also it all gets affected. So first thing is for the female's health, then their performance.
Right.
So that's what I go with, because I'm into ethical practice. So any athlete that comes to me, their health is the first priority for me, then comes the performance and the medals. So yes, for female athletes, especially the challenge when we face, if an athlete is already coming to me post puberty,
Mm.
then the foundation wasn't done right. Many of the female athletes are deficient in so many nutrients.
Right.
They are not used to having milk every day, so then we have to worry about the stress fractures and all this and that.
Mm.
And I'm someone who wouldn't just push in a lot of supplements right away. I would try to first fix things with the diet. If we can't do it with that, then we look into supplements. So female athletes, working with them is little more challenging than working with the male athletes.
Mm.
But I wouldn't say that I had some very difficult. I mean, they generally listen. If you know how to get through, if you know how to put your point across, and once they know that they can trust you and you mean well.
Right.
So, I mean, that's all. You need to have those counseling skills when you're working with the female athletes.
Right. See, female athletes, women go through a lot of hormonal imbalances, hormonal challenges especially for women athletes. So, how do you deal, or how a guardian should deal with their daughter during their menstruation? I mean, in terms of nutrition, what would be your general advice? Because I know there are people who want their daughter to excel in sports and whatever discipline it is, but they might not be able to afford a sports nutritionist. And a lot of the
Mhm.
associations, they don't believe that you need to spend money on a good sports nutritionist, good sports psychologist, good sports scientist, and somebody who can give you great advice that what your daughter needs to have during those difficult times, I would say.
So, in general, it's not only during the periods we think about, we start thinking about that a week or 10 days prior to when the periods are supposed to
Hmm.
start. So, I tell my athletes, because during period, it's not like if you can't do the immediate firefighting, right? So, there are certain nutrients which are, and of course, it starts with the water, because you see females generally, they do not drink enough water.
Yes,
It's like not only for the athletic
for
population,
everybody.
but I have seen it overall, like, yeah, overall.
I never
So
used to
one
drink
thing,
a
the
lot,
first thing
but now I really make it a point to have a lot of water.
I do, I'm sitting here also my water bottle. So I, not only preaching, but I practice also the same thing. So, okay. So when it comes to female athletes, so first thing I start checking with their water intake.
Hmm.
See, many times what happens, if only that simple thing you fix, a lot of things get fixed. So water intake is there, then comes adequate protein, because and calcium and folic acid and vitamin C, because they all, and of course iron, because India is still, anemia still exists in India at a large
True,
scale.
true.
So I tell the parents or the guardians of female athletes to get the blood test done for the female athlete to make sure there are no deficiencies.
Hmm.
Because even if they have B12 deficiency, a lot of things in their performance change. And of course, we need to see iron and ferritin level, and a lot of those things. Coming to when it comes to the female athletes, I tell we need to start at a younger age. It's not like when they come to us, we can right away fix something. If there is something which is lacking for years and years and years, we need certain time. So one thing is, when an athlete is coming new into the training system and all that, we tell them to take it slowly. First, let us fix their nutrition, let us fix the basics, and then their body can take the stress of the training. So when it comes to diet and all that, yes, the basic, like I told you, the iron, the folic acid, protein, calcium, and water, it goes without saying. So these are the things we need to fix. There are certain parents and all that, during, and not only parents, I see a lot of coaches during periods, the girls would not train for a couple of days.
Yeah, more than seven
So that
days.
is,
Yes, more than 7 days.
yes, so it is not the right practice. What if your competitions fall in those dates only? So general, I mean, scientifically, if you see the data also, I mean, I do a lot of sessions on female athletes. So when it comes to during their menstrual cycle, you do need to reduce their training level by 15 to 20%. You reduce the training level because the body is utilizing a lot of energy with, their menstrual cycle. So training reduced, food intake is fine, like whatever they're taking, and
Yes.
we do up their iron intake and certain nutrients that will take care of it. But you stop the training totally, that's not required, because your competition may fall in your, and then you're sure gonna lose because you're not used to train during your menstrual periods. So this is something, the small things matter. So it's not only the nutrition part of it, it's the training part of it that also matters. Some women who don't feel any backache or the cramps and all that, they say we to train 100%. I said no, you're not supposed to. It's just that because your body is not aching, there is a lot of work going on inside your
Inside your
body.
body,
So
right?
it's not
Right.
like you need
Right.
to, yeah. So these are few things we need to keep in mind.
Also, Gen Z is the word, right? The new generation. Okay, I'm a
Yes.
little bit, old school woman. So the other day I was hearing a lot of conversation that took place between the Gen Z young women saying, why is there a need to, like you said, we can train 100% and, my body is not aching, my stomach is not, aching, or I'm not having cramps. So what's the point of taking rest and stuff like that? For them, I think this is a perfect answer for those young women who really believe that they are really fit during those days. Also, I remember when you said that, what if your competition happens on the day of your periods? This is what MC Maricom, the legendary MC Maricom, said. Just din mere final hai, usi din mere periods. So I really want to know your final thoughts, and if you want to say anything to my listeners and my viewers, you're welcome to say.
Now, my final thoughts, and it will also be a request that start when it comes to sports nutrition, start early. You cannot fix a lot of things later on, because at that time we can just push. We cannot fix what was not done at the, because the even the nutrients that your body absorbs, because when it's the time that you are growing, your bone, muscles, brain, everything developing, at that time, if you do not take care of the basics, because I mean, as you also mentioned earlier, that sports nutrition is not still at the front row there,
Right.
it's not in the, make sure that, you take care. It's not, if you don't have access to a sports nutritionist, you can, just make sure that you're eating right, and everybody knows what fruits and vegetables mean to you. It's like, and during COVID, we learned a lot. I mean, there are
True.
few things COVID taught us good,
COVID was a learning phase for
So,
all of us.
yeah, I mean, a lot of, and I tell you, many of my athletes, most of them did not get affected by COVID. Even if they had, they didn't know. Only a couple of them were affected, like with the COVID, but many of them did not even catch the infection,
Right.
because they were very healthy. So this is what we need to build the foundation. That's where India is not yet there. You see the other countries, they have a sporting culture. Okay, we don't have sporting culture, but we can fix things at our level. So if there are parents, guardians, or even the schools who are promoting sports, they need to look into that, what they are feeding to the kids is the right thing, in the right amount and at the right time. So that is what is, we need to build the basics right, and then only you can, if the foundation is not right, the building may not be, really strong. So this is what I want to tell everybody. One thing which I cannot say bye without saying this is, water is the most important thing, because as a whole, I see the Indian population is dehydrated. It's not like tea is not going to fix your headache like the water is going to, because you can get headaches even if you are dehydrated.
Right.
So make sure you drink enough water. That is one of the leading cause. Dehydration is one of the leading cause for the sports injuries. So this is something, I mean, nutrition in one place, hydration in one place, you combine it all together, you're definitely going to get better performance, but we need to start as early as possible with the competitive athletes.
On that note, Aradhana Sharma, it was such wonderful, such enriching conversation, with you. Wonderful to have you again. And I guess, there are people who watch this podcast regularly. They will be benefited greatly and would really understand why we need a sports nutritionist and what the job of a sports nutritionist is. On that very note, thank you so much for giving me such wonderful
Thank you
insights.
so much for having me here, Pratna. Thanks a lot. It was lovely chatting with you. So bye for now. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye.